All right, everyone. Promises made and promises delivered. Link in the description, archived, of course. Trump is firing thousands and thousands of federal workers as we speak, probationary employees. So when you're in a federal agency, when you first enter, for the first year or two, it kind of, I believe, depends on the agency, you're on a probationary period. So if you're doing your job well, of course, then eventually you have tenure. If you're not doing a good job, the firing system is easier for these individuals. And I'm going to read some of this verbatim, because again, this is another promise made, promise kept moment for the Trump administration. Thousands of probationary employees fired as Trump administration directs agencies to carry out widespread layoffs. Officials have set their sights on probationary workers who have typically been employed for less than a year, or 2 years in some cases, because they have fewer job protections and lack the right to appeal. Labor unions representing federal employees are still working to get their arms around the full scale and scope of the firing of probationary employees this week. More than 200,000 employees have worked within the federal government for less than a year, according to the most recent 2024 data from the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, which conducted Thursday afternoon's call. The calling on Thursday took place at the Departments of Energy and Veterans Affairs, among others. By the way, we'll get into the liberal reaction, trust me, in a moment, and followed terminations of scores of probationary workers earlier this week at the Department of Education, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and the Small Business Administration. More dismissals at other agencies, including the Department of the Interior, took place Friday. Until recently, federal employees across all government agencies had only been placed on paid administrative leave. This is due to underperforming. So Trump is culling people from federal agencies that are not performing well, generally speaking. Most of the people that are being, laid off, that's the reason why. They were laid off for a reason. This didn't even take place under the Trump administration. In some cases, it took place under the Biden administration. What is the liberal reaction? Well, let's refer to the legacy media. Saw a headline earlier today. Oh my God, Donald Trump is laying off people that are in the energy sector that are related to work on nuclear power plants and stuff like that, and he didn't even realize what he was doing. Okay, you work in a nuclear plant. Let me ask you a question. It's entirely rhetorical. You're working in a nuclear plant, but you got laid off, at least temporarily. What was the reason for this? I don't think that we need to ask that question. Oh shit, you pressed the wrong button. You melted down the reactor core or something like that. That's the reason why these people are being laid off. There are certain people in the federal work sector that are doing a good job. I don't believe in laying them off. Well, some of them at least. That's fine. I think Trump came out the other day and he was talking about having a trilateral agreement, actually, with Russia and China to decrease defense spending by 50%, actually. This would de-escalate the world greatly, although I do not agree with him on not upgrading our missile defense systems and our nuclear arsenal and things like that. So I do have disagreements with Trump. Don't think that I'm part of some cult. I know that the standard liberal argument is if you agree with Trump on anything, you're part of a cult, whatever, I don't give a shit, you fuck yourself. But as far as that goes, that seems like a good idea. And firing thousands and thousands of workers who were already underperforming, there was a reason that they were laid off to begin with, simply makes sense. If somebody is not doing their job, let's say you're in the private sector. If you're not doing your job, you get laid off. No, you don't just get laid off, you get fucking outright fired. You get forced out, and you take your shit out of your desk, and then you go home. And hopefully you find a new job. You weren't doing your job. That's the whole point of it. It's about efficiency. Like, let's say, for example, in my line of work, I edit books, I make videos, I do a lot of gardening as well. Let's say that I shit on the garden. I just let it go to seed, basically. Well, I mean, nobody wants to see that shit. If I'm making low-effort videos, which nobody wants to watch, instead of tens of thousands of people watching them, eventually I'm going to lose a little bit of money now, aren't I? If I don't edit works, or if my edited works suck ass, nobody's going to buy them. It's meritocracy. You have to do a good job. It's the same thing with the federal workforce, but for too long we've sheltered them from the repercussions of underperforming and we do this in education especially, I'll get into that in a second. We've made it so that it's almost impossible to fire people even if they're not doing their job. This is most acutely the case with teachers. There are teachers right now, this is not hyperbole or exaggeration, that are sitting there in the office. They're not actually teaching or anything like that, but they can't be fired. So they sit there and they watch TV all day. Or they shitpost on Twitter or something like that. But they can't be laid off. It's impossible to fire them. This is a little bit of a problem. I hope that Lee Zeldin tackles over the next couple of years, by the way. We've had this problem for some time. A federal worker, it has enormous protection well beyond in the private workforce against being fired or being fined or being punished in any way because it's a federal worker. And so they're like, well, and just sit here. I'm shuffling these papers around. And, let's see. Mr. Smith has a filing here. I'll get to it tomorrow. And that's what they do. And this happens too often. We incentivize failure, in effect, more than anything else. And it shouldn't be happening. I mean, it's a waste of taxpayer money. It's a waste of our time. It's inefficient. It makes absolutely no sense. But that's the way that it's been done for decades, more or less. Even Trump, in his first term, didn't really tackle this problem. I have a feeling that Musk leaned in on his ear and told him, hey, the inefficiency is really important. Maybe this should be a priority. We're going to save so much money by firing these people. If they're not doing their job, why are we paying them? Why are they even in the workforce to begin with? I like how the liberals were saying, number one, they were complaining about the nuclear sector. And it's like, again, if somebody's been laid off in the energy sector related to nuclear power, you probably don't want them there. There's a reason for that. And number two, complaining about an increase in unemployment in the federal workforce. I shit you not. It's on RCP literally as we speak. I don't have the link in the description, but you can look it up for yourself. Oh my God, unemployment in the federal workforce is rising. Well, yeah, but it's the people that you don't want employed in the federal workforce. That's the whole goddamn point. You can streamline things, number one. And number two, you can get rid of the people that aren't doing their job. That's the whole fucking point. That's the way any sane business operates. If I have a company, let's say I employ 100 people, or whatever, and I find out that there are a few people that simply aren't doing their job. So the janitor is not cleaning out the trash. The trucker is not actually shipping the product in a timely manner. That clerical worker over there is just basically spending all day shitposting and not actually filing the paperwork. And the accountant over there can't account. I'm going to fire them. And they don't have any reasonable job protection beyond getting a layoff notice. In the federal workforce, if you've got tenure, it's a little bit different. And this is a big problem. So Trump is starting at the bottom with people who are ineffective and who don't have that job protection. Good on him. It's a great idea. Then you eat your way up the food chain, so to speak. I'm sure that hundreds of thousands of people will be laid off. This is a good thing for the country. These are people that the taxpayers no longer need to subsidize because they're not doing their job. That's the whole point. You want effective workers within any workforce. If I have soldiers and one dude, he holds the gun backwards, that's going to be a goddamn problem now, isn't it? Dude, sorry, but you're going to shoot yourself. You're a liability to the platoon. And so you've got to go. And it's not that you hate the person or anything like that. It's just you want the platoon to operate efficiently. Here's this pilot who doesn't know how to actually fly a plane. That's going to be a problem. And this happens all the time within society. People don't even understand how inefficient, inept, and stupid the average person is. Even people who are highly trained. Sometimes they're goddamn outright delusional. Most people don't recognize this. Big problem. That's about all. Peace out.